Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about service to others. According to the Law of One, the whole point of incarnating in third density is to make a conscious choice between what is known as the paths of service to others or service to self, and having chosen one of those paths, commit to it enough to graduate to fourth density, the next level of spiritual evolution in the universe as we know it. And apparently, a disappointingly small percentage of people on Earth have been able to graduate to fourth density on the service to others path. Why is this so, and how can we best be of service to others while we're here in third density? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong. I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups of the LNL research page shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we meet twice a week on Zoom, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, and Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you would like to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week to let folks know what we're talking about that week, as well as the Zoom sessions. Zoom links. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty, Austin Bridges, Gary Bean, and Trisha Bean from the LNL Research Channeling team. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you would like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you would like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, today's topic is service to others. Let's meet our panelists. Panelists, go ahead and let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Louis.
Greetings. My name is Louis Wood, and I'm calling from Laurier, Washington. Awesome to be here.
It's so awesome to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And Todd?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tad. I'm calling from Europe, like Gothenburg, and I'm super happy to join this group and all the ones who are also here in this podcast.
We're so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And Elaine?
Hi, Elaine from Santa Rosa, California, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you.
We're so happy to have you all here. Just did want to remind our viewers, as always, that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One. We are just normal people like you, talking about things of a spiritual nature that seem important to us. Anything that any of us say could be wrong, and you're welcome to disagree with anything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the Law of One and the entities known as Ra and Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on what is service to others. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. More or less everything else we're going to be reading through today could be considered a variation of that one statement. It's worth noting that all of the reading passages we're looking at today came to us through the process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and other entities, such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. Basically, a channel serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. And in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at LNL Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning they are subconscious or unconscious as if asleep, meaning they are not aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they are speaking. It would be as if they are talking in their sleep. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they are only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're speaking. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, beginning in the mid-1980s up until present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, and Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind or one group consciousness. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness or different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air had some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying for a long time they do. We would call that first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants or animals, clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we would regard as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans or cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants or other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of social memory complexes, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single consciousness, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual human. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fourth density, and sixth density as a comparable quantum leap above and beyond that. There is obviously more to it than that, but suffice to say for now, the entity known as Quo would appear to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, and Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. And they have been channeled every month since then, up until present day, by the LNL research channeling team. Session transcripts can be found in the LNL research conscious channeling library shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at a passage on what is service to others. On November 16th, 2019, Quo said, "Each positive seeker who wishes to be of service to others and to open the heart in unconditional love is a kind of missionary that has a creed that includes the consideration of each other entity that will be experienced as a soul within life experience. This creed of service to others is one which requires of the conscious seeker the willingness to give of the self in a fashion which upholds the desire to see each other entity as the self and as the creator." And that last line, I think, to me, sums up really the core of what service to others is about. It's about seeing everyone who appears to be someone else, some other thing, as an other self in another body, or the creator, the one infinite creator in another body. Louis, any thoughts, reflections on this passage? Anything to add?
Yes, I find it interesting that it starts out with each positive seeker. So there's no like neutral ground. You can't be maybe wanting to be positive. You can't be service to self only. It says each positive seeker. So you have to, like, I guess, begin the process of trying to polarize before you can truly, I guess, manifest the right kind of energy to be service to others oriented. So I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, and indeed, I think it would be fair to say that most people aren't even aware that there's a choice to be made and a choice to polarize in one direction or the other, which is why so many people probably swing back and forth between the two paths, I think. What do you think, Todd? Anything to add? Any thoughts, reflections?
Well, in reality, this is something that I believe each of us has been practiced from an early age, and in some way, it either grows or fades depending of the kind of upbringing or path one chooses. So yeah, however, I think children's innocence is a clear example of this, like is giving without expecting anything in return and simply doing because you feel is in your heart, because it brings you joy or makes you feel whole. And that, to me at least, is the beginning of unconditional service. And when we say that it comes from the heart, that's something that has always made me curious. What kind of heart are we really talking about? The physical one that is here, or the emotional one that is personally my thinking and your God's, and is the one like that place where we feel butterflies, and it's like an energy engine that moves, you to act, and sometimes in a way that feels you wonderful, and other times a bit strange.
Nice. Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing up the point that we all probably start as service to others as children or as newborn babies, and then it's the experiences we have after that that can either push us on either direction. That's a really good point that I hadn't thought of. What do you think, Elaine? Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful way of putting it, Todd. Um, yeah, and also what I think is really interesting here is it requires the conscious seeker to have the willingness to give up the self. And so that's where the will comes in, and intention as well, to set that intention to be of service to others every day and throughout the day, if you can, to remind yourself that you are on that path of service to others. Um, Will and willingness is very key, and intention.
For sure. And again, another super important point to make, that it's not about making a choice as a one and done thing. It's about making a choice and keep repeating, reiterating that choice in every opportunity you have in your daily rounds. It's a great start. I probably might want to share with our viewers a little table that might help clarify the differences for anyone who's not clear. And I'll invite the panelists to share thoughts on this if they have any. You could think of the path of service to others as, again, seeing the creator in yourself as well as all other selves, whereas the service to self path is about seeing the creator only in yourself and not in anyone else. You can think of the service to others path as being about accepting, treating others as equals, being inclusive, being egalitarian, whereas the service to self path, I think it's fair to say, is more about controlling others to gain more power over them. It is inherently elitist and exclusive, hierarchical, authoritarian in structures. You could say that service to others is about honoring and not violating the free will of others, whereas service to self is very much about rejecting the free will of others and enslaving them against their will, or getting them to enslave themselves of their own free will, if possible. You could say that service to others path is referred to as the positive path, being centered in love, truth, about radiating, giving energy and love to others, whereas service to self is also described as the negative path, based on fear, lies, and deceptions, absorbing, taking from others as opposed to giving. And although it would seem that service to others is the good path and service to self is the bad path, it cannot be emphasized enough that Rod did say in session 7, question 15, that the law of one blinks neither at the light or the darkness, but is available for service to others and service to self. And perhaps it might be helpful to think of it in terms of yin and yang, where, I don't know, one is service to self and the other is service to others, and that you really need both in order to have completeness. Just like you would never say that the North Magnetic Pole is better than the South Magnetic Pole. And if we could just get rid of the South Pole of a magnet, everything would be great. You really do actually need both. And Creator is found on both paths, experiencing the extremes of both. So it is something that many of us, I believe, are grappling with these days, but that is our challenge as service to others, I think, to accept that. Panelists, did you have any thoughts on any of this? Just kind of wanted to set the table before we dig a little bit deeper into the topic.
Very helpful
Sound good?
and concise. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. I've been working on this for a while. So why don't we then take a look at a couple passages on best way to be service to others. In session 17, question 30 of the Raw Contact, Raw said, "The best way of service to others is the constant attempt to seek to share the love of the Creator as it is known to the inner self. This involves self-knowledge and the ability to open the self to the other self without hesitation. This involves, shall we say, radiating that which is the essence or the heart of the mind-body-spirit complex. This is how you know you're talking to an extraterrestrial entity, because I've never heard anyone on Earth refer to people as mind-body-spirit complexes. But for those who are new to the law of one, that is the term that they use for a person, a complex of mind, body, and spirit. Continuing on, Ross said, speaking to the intention of your question, the best way for each seeker in third density to be of service to others is unique to that mind-body-spirit complex. This means that the mind-body-spirit complex must then seek within itself the intelligence of its own discernment as to the way it may best serve other selves. This will be different for each. There is no best. There is no generalization. Nothing is known. I'm going to go straight to the panel on this one. What do you think, Tot? Any thoughts, reflections on this?
Well, I had to reread that one a couple of times because, I have come to realize that everything begins in the moment you open your eyes. By simply being grateful to yourself and for the gift of existing and for allowing yourself to feel. And from there, you start expanding that field. For example, when you are preparing your breakfast, you're just doing it with gratitude for all the who with part of it, the process. You fill your actions with love and light. And yeah, even if it might sound a little bit of cliche or repetitive, I think it's because it becomes part of your service, serving to this body, to this vehicle first. It means aligning your thoughts with your actions and simply acting with humility and respect for yourself and those around you. And yeah, also smiling a little bit more. This has started to feel more and more natural to me, like to smile. And to the beautiful part that it is, smiles are contagious, like when someone smiles, you smile back. And so everything's beginning to shift. And of course, being patient. Yeah, I think it's just like what also seems really interesting to me is the idea of free will. I think that's coming soon. So I will not expand that. But yeah, it's just like start with opening your eyes. I like, wow, I'm part of this. I'm doing it. I'm part of this. And smile a little bit to yourself first. Like everything starts with your body, with your mind, with your spirit.
What a beautiful way to frame it. And again, this is why I always enjoy having panelists, because they always think of things I wouldn't have thought of. But yeah, everything you said makes perfect sense. And Quo has said many times, you have no idea what effect your actions have on other people. And they've said specifically, just smiling at someone, especially in days when it's really hard to smile, can really make a big difference in someone's life. Much appreciated bringing that. Elaine, any thoughts, reflections to add?
I am totally on board with that. That gratitude is sort of the key that opens up your intention, your day. Um, when I open my eyes and look out the window, there's this beautiful tree that I see every morning. And it's just an automatic thing for me to express gratitude for that tree and the sky. And I'm awake. I have another day, another opportunity to try to be an instrument of love and light for the one infinite creator. And so yeah, just gratitude is it's a really easy way to get into your intention of service to others. So that's beautiful, Todd.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Especially, again, these days where it seems increasingly difficult to be thankful for living in the world that we're living in. Having that gratitude, I agree, huge difference and a huge service to others. Lewis, anything to add?
Yes, I think Tot and Lane said it very well, and the radiance of their sharings and the way this message resonated with them, I think, is the heart of service to others, or at least the start, to the quest to be of service to others. But I think before you actually begin your quest, there's a portion where you have to have that self-knowledge. And I think the self-knowledge comes from authentic experience. And so, like in society, no one wants to be a bad person. No one wants to be labeled the reason for failure, the weakest link, or something derogatory. But if we don't have authentic experiences that build us, that bring us up to the knowledge of self, knowledge of the creator, knowledge of
Mm.
oneness, then we are in some way ignorant in our attempt, or unauthentic in our attempts to be of service to others. And still it can be used for good. Good things can come from it, but it's not the path uh, spoken or referenced in many materials to include the raw material. And I think that's why daily meditation is always mentioned, experience is always mentioned. And I think that's in my experience anyway, and I think that's the actual start to polarization and to be of service to others.
For sure. Yeah, meditation without a doubt is always the thing they recommend as a spiritual practice that can help for just about every problem. Something that took me a long time to accept. I resisted meditation for a long time. I just couldn't accept the idea of sitting and just being still and, well, sitting and being still and just thinking. It took me a long time. But yeah, I think it was through the raw material and channeling sessions that I was able to learn to develop a meditation practice that works for me. But again, meditation is different for everyone as well. There's many different ways to do it. I did have a couple other passages to look at on best ways to be of service to others. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to share on this passage before we look at something else?
Well, I just think like what you said, Louise, and now you've reframed it a little bit, Jonathan, like the meditation process. I think each of us in our mind, body, spirit complex have all these seeds that are just waiting to be arise, they just are waiting to be being there in the light. And either if you do it with religion or without religion, with a dogma or with I don't know, any kind of practice, do it. And don't think like about what is going to happen and with expectation, because then you are just thinking in something that is not already happening. So you just do it because you feel it there. And like meditation sometimes sounds boring, and I think for the ones who are not practicing, that is like, oh my god, I'm not going to sit in silence. But just 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, as we did it today, 1 minute, and then you will start to see like how comfortable it feels to be with
Mm.
yourself.
Well said. Yeah, it's probably worth noting that I don't actually do silent meditation. I usually listen to a recording of Om chanting and Om myself, and it seems to work well for me. But for anyone who has not developed a meditation practice yet, we did a podcast episode on meditation with lots of different passages from Quo and Ra and different perspectives on different types. Would encourage you to check it out. Anybody else? Anything you wanted to add or share before we look at another couple passages? Cool. Enjoying the conversation. These are two passages from the same session, November 13th, 2010, one of my favorite sessions of all time. The whole session is worth reading. In this part, Quo said, "You did indeed come into your incarnation with your intention set to serve in an outer sense. However, what throws off the thinking of most spiritual seekers in this area is the fact that many entities wish to do no outer service that is obvious. In other words, the energies that have to do with teaching vast number of students and raising a child are one and the same. It does not matter whether your attention is lavished upon one child or the children that are of your family, or whether you are a teacher to many. You are being of precisely the same service in either case. Know, therefore, that you do have outer tasks that only you can do, and that you gravitate naturally towards them and cannot be kept from them. But know also, these do not often look like service to your culture." Also from that session, they said, "There is nothing so humble that it does not sing of the beauty of the Creator. The ways of spirit are not the ways of humans. There is no measure for service. All services are equal. If you clean the bathroom with love in your heart, it is as much a service as if you heal or channel or teach with love in your heart. And indeed, if one who teaches or heals does not have love in their heart, you who clean the bathroom are serving more efficiently, more efficaciously, and to a higher degree of beauty."
Mm.
Such beautiful words, and I cannot emphasize enough that these came through the process of channeling, meaning the person who was saying these words really didn't know what they were saying. They were just in a deep meditative state, trying to make telepathic contact with what they believed was an extraterrestrial entity, and just saying the words that was coming to them. But really, so beautiful. I really love this understanding that it all comes down to doing something with love in your heart, and there's no task so humble that it cannot be equal to healing or channeling or doing anything else considered great. Cleaning the bathroom, if you do it with love in your heart, lightens earth energies. It's a beautiful, beautiful thought, beautiful teaching. Elaine, did you have any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Well, I have this passage on permanent bookmark and have read it like you so many times. And it always brings tears to my eyes because it is, it's, it's the great leveler. It's like all service, no matter how small, is beautiful in the eyes of the Creator and brings love and light to the planet and to all around you. And and it's just a such a good reminder because I know for myself, I never think I'm doing enough. I'm not seeking, in the best way or I God, I had this reaction to Catalyst and oh God, I'm not worthy. But this just reminds us that who you are is perfect and beautiful, and each entity, each self has their unique way of service to others. Um, and there is no service too small. And so we can take comfort from that, that just being who you are, cleaning the bathroom. I know when I'm like cooking dinner and I'm tired and I just don't feel like doing it, I always remind myself, this is service to my family. I love them. I'm doing this out of love and just do it. And it's so yeah, it's just beautiful. All services are equal. There's no measure. And in the Course of Miracles, really quick, they also say there are no all miracles are the same. There's no small miracles, great miracles. Love is love.
Nice. Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that. And I will confess for the record that as many times as I've read that passage, I have yet to clean the bathroom with love in my heart. But I'm sure I'm gonna. One of these days, I will actually remember to do that.
I love
Otherwise, I'm
cleaning the
trying to do
bathroom.
that. Yeah, yeah. One of these days. Well, I clean the bathroom a lot. I just don't usually do it with love in my heart. Yeah. But I appreciate, especially you're being a professional musician, reminds me of that last part of the first passage where they're saying, no, therefore, you do have outer tasks that only you can do and that you gravitate naturally towards and cannot be kept from them. Just know that that does not often look like service in your culture. And I would assume that applies to your music. I would assume that's just something you feel drawn to and that you could not do, even if you wanted to. And that may or may not be
Yeah.
seen as others as service to others. But to me, from this perspective, yeah, you're adding love and light and beauty to the world and sound and everything else. That is definitely service to others, especially if that's your intent and you're doing it
And
with
it
love.
absolutely is very, very conscious attempt that the music is to spread love and light. That's it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to add a link to your website and the YouTube video when we upload it would be wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Tot, any thoughts, reflections to add?
Uh, I was just laughing about it because literally that is one of my favorite activities. And physically, like I'm really doing that. Because I think that's the space for me at least, is the temple space. I call it the temple, where you really feel with yourself and you just realize, okay, I'm here with myself. No one is going to disturb me. And then yeah, then you're sharing your spaces with others. And something that we tend to do is to label a lot. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this correct? Is this incorrect? I like that one. You know, like to put everything into labels, into boxes. And when we do that, we just limit our creation. So that is something that I have been practicing more and more. Just not put limits to it. And I'm not saying like I'm like, oh my God, like I'm just wandering here and there. It's just like why you have to label something. Just express it as you feel it, and that's it. And don't overthink about is that okay? Is that bad? How I'm feeling super bad today, because you are putting more energy maybe in something that is not needed, and then you are adding more in something that actually don't need any ads. So keep it short, keep it clear, and the less you add, the more you do. So and maybe it's that because I am also like a kind of a designer, and we have also this sentence like a simple design is just like less is more. So yeah, I prefer not to use labels, but you know, like because humans we have this tendency just to extend and expand just because we like to talk and we are here though talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked to a number of people who feel as you do about labels, and I can see how that can be problematic trying to compartmentalize things and put people into boxes and such. On the flip side, I think labels can just be a helpful shorthand just to save you a lot of time and effort of trying to figure something out that could be expressed more simply and concisely as a label, but that's only if that applies for both people. Reminds me, I think, of what Lewis was saying about being authentic. Lewis, did you have any thoughts, reflections on either of these two passages or anything that's been said?
Yes. So first, I'd like to apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties, so thank you for bearing with me. And I think as far as the starting points with these passages, it's the same thing. It starts with the self, like it's the open heart, So like it's not. I think both Elaine and Todd have mentioned like it's not about a measurement or trying to scale, but whatever flows from your heart. So I see that in the service to others uh, passages throughout the Law of One.
For sure. For sure.
Mm.
Did anyone have anything else they wanted to say about these two passages or anything else before we change topics? Sounds good. Well, let's take a look at a couple passages on being versus doing. On May 17th, 2005, Quo said, "It is very difficult to think of the main and centrally constituent service to the one infinite creator as that of being, and yet that is what you came to Earth to do." Excuse me. You came here to be yourself, to breathe the air, to participate in the illusion of planet Earth, to go through each and every detail of receiving catalyst, responding to catalyst, moving through the periods of joy and suffering that this catalyst offers you. And always your chief responsibility is to be yourself, to feel truly, to examine yourself as fully as you can, and to know yourself to the very limit of your ability. You wish to know yourself, not to judge yourself or condemn yourself or to pat yourself on the back, but simply to become aware of who you are. I really like what seems to be the simplicity of this, which is being yourself. But if you think about it, what they're really asking, encouraging us to do is really be who you are on the deepest level, to keep exploring on a deeper and deeper level who you are, what you came here to do, because you'll find that at the deepest level, you are the one infinite creator. And by
That's
being
right.
yourself and radiating what you express as the one infinite creator or God to everyone, that is one of the best service to others you can offer. Lewis, did you have any thoughts on this passage?
No, it's beautiful. No, good.
Nice. Indeed. Todd?
Well, yeah, actually, every time I read these passages, or at least, because we were on Saturday reading one of those, in the other sessions we also host. Like at least what I can interpret them for them is I felt such a deep curiosity and also like a sense of truth. Just because, as I mentioned before, we are born into an environment that is seemingly shaped by so many factors that can be a double-edged sword when it comes to seeing or sensing your true essence. And yet maybe that's the whole point of being here, simply to experience the highs and the lows, and from there choose how to walk a path. That's the whole point of being here. Like that might be more balanced without falling into the extremes. And I think it's a privilege we give ourselves first to exist, to be unique, to be part of the elements. You mentioned that in the beginning, like fire, water, air, and yet completely distinct from them. So I think in the end, it's up to each other to decide whether we want to be true to our essence and honest with ourselves, or to maybe be shaped and colored by external influences and still to exist that way too, like it's not wrong or bad. We are here to experience, and that's enough. That's simply, you don't have any other text. The only one test you have is experience, experience, experience.
And yet, that can be really difficult if what you are called to do runs counter to what society or the people around you want you to do, like being an artist or a musician, where people are constantly saying, well, what are you going to do for a real job, or how are you going to make a living for that? Or being LGBTQ and being sure that you are perhaps a different gender than people thought you were when you were born with. But knowing deep down that's who you are, that's a big challenge for a lot. And I did want to encourage anyone who identifies as LGBTQ. I hope you will feel welcome in any Law of One study group that you join. But if for some reason that is not the case, feel free to join the Seattle group. You will be welcome and valued and respected here for who you are, as everyone would be. Elaine, anything to add?
Absolutely. Yes. Responding to each and every catalyst that you encounter in this incarnation is the way we get to know ourselves, of course. And also it occurs to me, really truly knowing ourselves is knowing that we are of the creator, we are the creator. And when we get to that knowing of ourselves, we've also learned, or we also know everyone else that we're encountering is also of the creator. So we're knowing them as we're getting to know ourselves and as we process that catalyst. And that's why other selves bring us that catalyst. So responding to the catalyst, getting to the place of forgiveness and unconditional love for that other self is also bringing that forgiveness and love to yourself, and just adding to the experience of really truly knowing the deepest part of yourself, which is the creator. So it's just so beautiful how it's set up.
And it seems
This
so
school of
simple.
learning. Yeah.
And
Right.
yet, in practice, I'm sure we can all think of individuals
It's
that,
very
let's
hard.
just say, rub us the wrong way or do things that we disagree with. And it's so easy, for me at least, to judge them as bad people or to be annoyed by things they're doing or to be saddened by the things they're doing that seem to hurt other people. And yet, like you said, I mean, if you believe in the law of one, well, either you believe it or you don't. Either you believe they are, in fact, another self, another you, or the one infinite creator, or you don't. And
Right.
that's the challenge, I think, is accepting it and practicing it. So,
Yes. And you can't escape the suffering of that, those many experiences that we encounter in this incarnation that bring us that catalyst. So
for sure.
yeah, this is a
Apparently, we all
school of
planned it
hard
that way.
knocks. We did. We asked for it. Send me to that reform school.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
part
get
of
my
it,
PhD in myself,
for sure.
hopefully.
Well, and especially now at this time, which is basically the end of third density and the beginning of fourth density, hyperpolarization. I mean, 20 years ago,
Yes.
I thought things were polarized in society, and now it's like hyper polarized. But like you said, it's the catalyst that's trying to get us to choose what we believe is service to others or service to self and commit to it.
Mm.
Anybody have anything else? I think I had one other passage to look at on this subject. Anybody else have any other thoughts to share before I change screens? Cool. This other passage is from March 18th, 2001. And Kuo said, "The main service of each of you is the service of being yourself. For when you are most truly and deeply yourself, when your heart is open and vibrating in its fullness, you become a crystal capable of receiving energy, transmuting energy, and releasing energy into Earth's sphere. Many of you from other planets have come here specifically to do this. It is a simple process. You breathe in, you breathe out, you allow the truth to flow through you."
Mm.
Such a beautiful passage on this
Mhm.
one. This is one I've read and reread many times as well. Um, I'll go straight to the panel. Todd, any thoughts, reflections on this passage?
Uh, that's something I have been practiced lately with my beloved ones. And this is something that in my innocence, I often wonder, when does it actually happen? And well, just as I ask myself that, I forget it too. Because really, what's the point of being such a focus on it if you are not doing it from your heart, either the gut or the heart, and it's not something that naturally arises from within you. Feeling through what we call intuition is more like when I say, wow, this situation, this detector is showing me a path that it feels like it's being handed to me in a silver platter. And in that case, why not go for it? Why not?
What a great way to look at it. What a great approach, indeed. Elaine, anything to add?
Yeah, it's all a gift, isn't it? It's just it's all a gift, and I love it. You breathe in, you breathe out. Well, we're breathing unconsciously, we don't have to think about it. We are breathing. So that's
Indeed.
the essence of being alive is that you're breathing. Um, and yeah, the truth is flowing through us at all times because the love and light of the infinite creator is flowing through all beings.
Indeed.
And it's only our thought forms, our blockages that we create in our mind and in our heart, in our inner energy centers that interrupt the flow of that love and light that's just flowing through us all naturally as we breathe naturally. So I just love it. It's so inclusive of every atom of the universe. you
Yeah,
know
literally. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about that energy flow shortly, but for now, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. I mean, what I'm getting from this passage is you're being of service to others just by existing, just by
Yeah.
choosing to incarnate and existing here and breathing in and out. You are taking that energy that's always flowing through you, and you're channeling it out to the rest of the world, and that is helping lighten Earth energies just in the way that you do that. And that's a beautiful thought. Lewis, any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, just the like the start of the second sentence all the way through. It says, "For when you are most truly and deeply yourself, when your heart is open and vibrating its fullness." It keeps saying that there's a level. It's not just being yourself; it's most truly and deeply yourself. And so it kind of feels like it's like Elaine was saying. There are all these illusionary blocks put on us, or we've given our attention to these illusionary blocks and concepts and thought forms that keep us from this. And so during this experience, if we quest towards that inner growth and development and seeking out of the truth of who we are, then we become the crystal capable of receiving and transmuting and releasing the energy to the earth sphere. And so it's that journey,
Mhm.
that we have to not give up on. It kind of That's what it's me anyway.
Yeah, agreed. I think I wanted to take a look at a couple passages about energy and heart chakras. Anybody have anything they wanted to add before we move on? Cool. Yeah, they talked a little bit about the open heart in this passage. Let's take a closer look at a passage on the importance of open heart. For viewers who are not familiar with chakras or energy centers, chakras is a term from Hindu traditions that refers to energy centers in the body, and energy centers or energy rays is how they're referred to in the Law of One. So, as Elaine was talking about earlier, the understanding both in Hindu traditions and in the Law of One is that prana or life force or love light from the creator or intelligent energy flows from the creator, the original source, through our sun and through our planet, upwards from Mother Earth, entering our red ray or root chakra, which deals with survival, sexual reproduction, fundamental vitality. From there, it goes up into the orange ray or sacral chakra, which deals with personal identity or your relationships with other individual selves. From there, it goes upward into the yellow ray or solar plexus chakra, which deals with group identity or relationships with groups of other selves. From there, it goes up to your green ray or heart chakra, which deals with universal, unconditional love. Also, the springboard to higher chakras and intelligent infinity. From there, it goes up to the blue ray or throat chakra, which deals with wisdom, light, honesty, clarity, and inspiration, communication to others, the entirety of your beingness. From there, it goes up to your indigo ray, also known as the third eye chakra, which is known also as the gateway to intelligent infinity, the center of the adept magical workings, or what in the Law of One is referred to as work in consciousness. From there, it goes up and out through your violet ray or crown chakra, which represents your vibratory essence, your sum or energetic signature of self, reflecting your overall balance. So, as has been mentioned, yeah, the idea is that just by being, we are already taking that energy constantly up through our energy bodies, distorting it in however we do, and then sending it outward to the rest of the planet and creation. But it's that green ray in the heart chakra that is really key to the path of service to others. Let's take a closer look at that. On April 18th, 2006, Quo said, "This incarnation of yours, my brother, is not about acquiring information or wisdom. It is about opening your heart and becoming able to share and carry the maximum amount of light and love as it flows from the Creator to the earth and through your physical and metaphysical bodies. If you can open your heart in this moment, you are doing the maximum amount that you can do to serve the Creator and the creation." Such a beautiful passage. What do you think about that, Elaine? Any thoughts, reflections on it?
Oh, it gives me all the feels. All of this stuff. It's just a warm bath of golden love and light and love. Um, yeah, and you know, um, our topic is service to others, but these passages just continually um, reiterate that the best way to serve others is to go inside, to know yourself, to open your heart, and to just be. And that means everyone can do it, anyone can do it. And that's the whole point because we are all of the creator. So it just feels so loving and of the creator, this reading, you know, it's just I don't know, it's hard for me to express because I get really teary-eyed. at these passages.
Yeah,
They're just so, so beautiful. And you're doing the maximum amount that you can do. All you have to do is open your heart.
indeed. And yet, that's often a really difficult thing to do. There are so many
It
things that
is.
we experience each day that cause us to close our hearts. So, the act of opening our heart in unconditional love for others and to see yourself and the Creator and others, not easy to do. It is worth
Yeah.
noting that this is pretty key to the path of service to others. In contrast, the path of service to self is about closing the heart and blocking the heart and bypassing from the yellow ray up to blue ray and skipping the heart entirely. Because the path of service to self really requires you to have no empathy for others. It really requires you to willfully do things that you know are hurting or killing others without really feeling any compassion or empathy or anything bad about it. Again, it is apparently as valid a path to the Creator as service to others, but just need to know if you're still trying to choose which path. If you're choosing the path of service to self, you really cannot have any empathy or caring for others. And
Mm,
for most of us, that is a difficult thing to do.
mm,
Lewis, any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, when it talks about this incarnation, not about acquiring information or wisdom, it kind of paints a picture for me to say most of what's happening on this path in this incarnation is happening on the inside. Like it might not be easily understood or seen by others. And so while you might be doing this or that, and people are seeing you as your actions, but inside you could be still trying to fight or figure out how to open your heart fully enough to then begin the path of service to others or whatever. So it sounds like it's a lot of inner work more than anything else.
mm.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And as they have said many times, that is one of the best ways to change the outer world is really work on the inner world, which I think we're going to get to later. Tot, anything to add?
Well, I think like all of you already said a lot. A way to put more on it, just like the journey start with yourself, and I think each of us, I really believe on that, that we came with an open heart, and we just with time maybe sometimes put it aside, but there is always like the probability to use the open heart. It's open for us, and it's just up to you if you want to put more light or less light. But it's there for us.
Nice. Yeah, it reminds me what Ross said in the very first contact. One of the first things they said in session one, they were asking us to think about your thoughts and how much were your thoughts centered in the one original thought of love today? Was love contained in your thoughts? And I
Mm.
think that same process applies here to the open heart. How often today was your heart open? How often were you allowing energy to flow through and experiencing unconditional love for others? Again, it's not easy to do. I really have to remind myself constantly throughout the day to open my heart. And sometimes it's just a matter of telling myself to open my heart and
Mm,
willing it. Whether I'm successful or not is another story, but thinking about it,
Mm.
I think is a good start.
Jonathan,
Yeah,
I have a question, if it's okay.
yeah, of course.
Um, when you did the podcast to service to self, did you talk about how it is that a service to self entity is able to bypass the heart? Because, like, emotions are what bring us to the awareness that we need to open our heart or that our heart is open, either way. And to be able to bypass that, the heart in service to self, you have to block off all emotion, I guess. I mean, did anyone address that? Because it seems so impossible to do because emotions are kind of um they they're entities in themselves and come through us kind of involuntarily, at least in my case. And
Yeah,
and I just wonder about that. Like how is it that they turn off or are able to turn is that a conscious decision to turn off emotions so that you can more easily bypass the heart? It's just something I wonder about.
It's a great question, and we did talk a bit about it in that episode. And I don't think anyone can say definitively what's going on in the interior world of another self, as long as we're here in third density behind the veil. But I think it would be fair to say that most what we might call normal people would have a really hard time having like no empathy and being able to knowingly hurt or kill other people without feeling any sense of remorse, which is why I think there was a question that came up in a quo channeling session. I think I asked that question of if there are many incarnated on Earth now who have followed the service to self path, but at some point decided they could not go any further and switched over. And they did affirm that many have indeed. And they said it's really good, important to have compassion for them because we've all walked on the
Yes.
service to self path at some point every day, probably.
Okay.
I think the other thing that came
Thank
up
you.
with, just as you can pre-incarnatively plan for yourself to be wired really well for empathy and compassion, there are probably entities who have committed to the service to self path and pre-incarnatively chose not to have any wiring for empathy or compassion. And I think if you think about it, you could probably think of individuals who kind of fit that description. So, yeah. Anybody else? Louis, Todd, any thoughts on that? It's a great question. Much appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, and I did want to encourage, feel free to jump in and ask questions or whatever as we go along. It's just a conversation we're having here. Otherwise, I did want to note for our viewers that if you are interested in learning more about chakras or energy centers or the stuff we've been talking about, we did have a podcast episode, number 14, on chakras and energy centers, where we went into more detail on what each of those do and how can we balance them all and work them all together. Otherwise, let's take a look at the process known as graduation or harvest. For viewers who are not familiar with this, it might help to go back and look at that density slide we saw earlier and note that graduation or harvest just refers to the process of making that quantum leap from one density to the next. In our case now, at this present time on Earth, it would look like we are trying to graduate both as individuals and as a collective from third density to fourth density. And that third density is often referred to as the density of choice because, as mentioned, the whole point of incarnating in third density is to make a conscious choice between the paths of service to others and service to self and commit to whichever path that is at a level enough to graduate to the next density. So on the service to others path, the graduation requirement, you could say, is to be at least 51% service to others, 49% service to self, meaning you are thinking of others a little bit more than yourself, and you are, generally speaking, vibrating at a level where you are putting the needs and welfare of others before your own, at least, let's say, 51% of your waking hours. In contrast, the graduation requirement on the service to self path is to be at least 95% service to self and no more than 5% service to others, meaning you're not thinking of anybody else any more than, say, 5% of your waking hours. The other 95% of your time, you're really just thinking about yourself and how you can control or manipulate others to gain more power for yourself. And those who do not reach that polarization level basically have to repeat third density and will probably be doing that on another planet other than Earth in the near future. So let's take a look at a couple passages that explore this a little further. On August 24th, 2005, Quo said, "It is not often understood among your peoples that it is extremely difficult to achieve a service to others rating of 51% or greater. Indeed, in our opinion, it is as difficult to achieve that rating as it is to achieve the obviously difficult rating of 5% service to others, which is the standard for graduation from third density for those who are seeking along the path of service to self. In the case of the service to self polarity, It is overtly clear as to why it would be difficult to achieve such a rating. The purity of thought necessary to achieve the level of self-discipline and control inherent in seeking to control others 95% of the time is patent. There is no one who would argue that it is an extremely difficult and challenging feat to achieve such a polarity. It is far more difficult to see into service to others to understand why it would not be equivalent to attempt to obtain a service to others polarity of 95% service to others as a balance to 95% service to self and the opposite polarity. However, the orientation of third density is geared towards a world that is not neutral, but is outwardly biased towards service to self. The default position, shall we say, of one within your society or culture, entrained by the authority figures of parents and teachers of childhood, is quite mixed and is perhaps at a balance point or a resting point if one pictures a swing on a pendulum at approximately 25% service to others and 75% service to self. This may seem to be quite cruel, and yet it is the natural result of the interactions of those who are dealing with consensus reality issues, such as survival, making a living, and defending the family against what it perceives to be situations and elements which would tear it apart. Super fascinating passage with a whole lot to unpack for sure. I suppose the big takeaway I get from this is that it's really hard to be 51% service to others because we live in a world that seems so heavily biased towards service to self. And yeah, makes sense to me as I look at the world. It does appear that way to me. What do you think, Lewis? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, I think I agree with the bias, your depiction of the bias of the world, and it feels like it's structured towards that. Like we don't wake up and want to be fear based in our interactions with other selves or the planet, but the way we're trained or we're led to believe, like we have to protect ourselves, protect our family, protect our possessions, protect our countries, like all these fictitious entities, we have to give of our own like energy to protect it based on like a healthy amount of fear. So yeah, I can see why it's there.
Constantly. Yeah, and there's been many, many times that Quo has referred to our great ape ancestors, which we have inherited from them. This tribal instinct, this instinct to look out for the self, look out for the family, look out for the members of your tribe, protect them from external threats, hoarding resources in a world that seems to be having dwindling resources. Those are kind of second density instincts which we're being challenged to overcome. And yet, as you said, yeah, we see so many appeals to that kind of tribalism in our society. What do you think? Todd, any thoughts, reflections here?
Well, there is not much that I can say here because whether we are on one side or on the other side, in the end, I think we are all going to arrive at unity. And each of us can choose because, yes, we can choose. And this is a unique decision that we make. And though a lot, sometimes we think, I know it's because of my mom, it's because of my dad. No, it's your decision, it's your choice. No one else can interfere in that. And yes, polarities exist. They are part of nature. The sweet and the salty, the light and the dark, the cold and the warm. Is really up to each person to practice what they feel called to, and it's totally fine to do it so. I mean, not saying that I'm in this part or in that one. And I think this podcast also touch on each of those polarities, and it's up to each to listener to know what they can take to in and what to leave behind. Like that's also part of this. And after all, the universe supermarkets is open to everyone, really to everyone.
Well said. Yeah, I appreciate that reminder because, again, Quo has said many times that it's not a failure to not graduate from third density to fourth. As you said, everybody's going to make it sooner or later. It just might take more times around than this particular time. But they said it's like falling into the light. You really cannot help but fall into the light. You're going to get there sooner or later. But we do have a great opportunity now to do things at least better than we did in our last incarnation. I think that's the hope of it. What do you think, Elaine? Anything to add?
Yes. The dealing with consensus reality issues, which is what is happening right now. Consensus reality seems so very chaotic and insecure, and and I see it as a conscious a conscious ratcheting up of the fear. Um, and as Tot said, it's our choice because consensus reality is I consent to this illusion. We don't have to. It's our choice to not consent to the consensus reality that's being manufactured out there in the illusion, and we can just choose to stay on our path of service to others regardless of that consensus reality, and that is our job. I
Yeah.
see it, you know. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
beautifully said. And it's a good reminder, again, that the service to self path is based on fear. And you can easily see how that is a challenge. We are constantly inundated with things that seem to be aimed specifically to keep us in a perpetual state of fear and war and anxiety. So, yeah, it is really hard to go against that current and to open your heart and to choose love over fear. But it is the hope that by watching podcasts like this and by learning more about the law of one, once you realize that that's the dynamic in play, then I think it's a lot easier to actually make a choice and commit to it.
Hmm.
That is the hope, at least.
Hmm.
Anybody else have anything to add on this passage before we move on? Did want to share for our viewers who might be more visual learners, there's a graphic on the screen that might help you visualize what we've been talking about. If you think of service to self and service to others on a scale, on a dial like this, where the needle can move from one to the other, again, you can see that the graduation requirement for service to others is 49% service to self and at least 51% service to others. It has been compared to just instinctively giving someone the larger half of a sandwich, for example. Whereas the graduation requirement for service to self, as you can see, is 95% service to self and not more than 5% service to others. That whole area in between is what has been referred to as the sinkhole of indifference. It's where most people are. It's their comfort zone, you could say. Most people just kind of swing back and forth somewhere in there and never quite polarize enough to reach that graduation requirement, either for service to others or for service to self. And as they said in that passage, in their opinion, the default setting, as it were, is 75% service to self, 25% service to others, meaning people just generally think about their own needs and wants about 3/4 of the time, which makes sense. We're really just trying to make ends meet. So many people are really just trying to pay the bills and trying to exist, and thinking of others more than 25% of the time. Yeah, that probably tracks. That's probably about where most people are. Let's take a look at one other passage. And this is from October 14th, 2005. Quo said, "We would note that to those who perceive at the heart level the absolute centrality of service to others as a polarized choice, it is close to inevitable that at the moment of death and the entry into graduation, your vibratory level will reflect that basic choice. Once you have awakened and begun the process of spiritual seeking, the odds are heavily in your favor that your vibratory level at that time will reflect a satisfactory level of service to others' polarity for you to be able to have the opportunity to graduate. We say this in order to take away that feeling of needing to pass a test. It is the essence of the grasping of the centrality of the choice of service to others as a polarity That is the most substantial part of how your energy will be vibrating, how your energy body will be vibrating at the time of your passing through that gateway, rather than the day-to-day details that vary according to those transient and ephemeral circumstances that come and go, rise and fall away again in the course of any lifetime. Therefore, rather than being overly concerned about any one choice, any one day, or any one action, keep moving back in your mind to the central point and to your first faithful choice of polarity. Affirm and reaffirm that choice. This is your fulcrum. This is the source of your power as a choice-making spiritual seeker. Then each day, let the day be a new one and see what you can do to make this day a day in which you have upheld that basic choice to the very best of your ability as a spiritual seeker. Love that passage so much. There's so much to unpack here. What do you think, Tot? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
I was just, when you were reading, I was like thinking, yeah, if you open the door, why you want to close it? And if you already have the call, and if you get the answer from that call, why you want to call again the same number? Move on. Don't stuck in the same number. Why you are calling the same, like, hey, can you give me the address? I give you the address already. Why are you calling again for the same address?
What a great
Really,
analogy.
I think that because, yeah, it's good to reaffirm the step, but why to do it exactly in the same way? Move on, go forward, like, and that's something like it. I think in when you are sometimes suffering, or when you are having these difficult times, is a little bit difficult to move on. But don't worry. The good thing is that we have an infinite number of choices. And it's up to you if you want to stuck in the same one, or it's up to you if you want to try another. And for me, like, also, like, like when Super Mario has these like lives, and in a moment he just get the star and it goes super faster, and then it kind of runs super faster in the levels. So it's up to you. You want to take the star, or you just want to go like in the same pattern always.
That's so great. Love the pop culture reference. What do you think, Elaine? Anything to add?
Oh, it's just another very hopeful passage, that again, like Todd said, if you've opened the door, why close it, right? You've made the choice, your intention is known. And yes, it's a question of balance. We're going to have our good days, our bad days, our out of balance catalyst processing. Um, but again, don't get bogged down in the day to day, in the consensus reality, because the truth is, you are of the Creator. The love and light of the Creator is flowing through you, and you've made the choice to be service to others. That's a big choice to make. And
Well, and indeed, I think that's the key, like consciously making that choice. Because if you have not made that choice, if you were not even aware that there was a choice to be made, then it would be really easy to close that door, huh?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I just
Oh
felt
no,
like
that's
jumping in at that minute. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
no, no, it's all good. It's all beautiful.
Thank you. Lewis, any thoughts? Anything want to add?
Yeah, beautiful passage. But I'm taking from it right now, like the reoccurring theme of every day we have to choose. We have to choose to love. We have to choose to be open. We have to choose to be service to self. We have to choose to be authentic. It's like every day, every situation, every encounter, we have to exercise that free will. And so I'm seeing that throughout these passages, and I'm just noting it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the key is in the very last line there. We're saying, make this a day which you have upheld that basic choice to the very best of your ability as a spiritual seeker. It means you're not always going to succeed in it. In fact, there's going to be a lot of times when you don't, but at least trying your best. As they have said many times, it's really the intention that means more than anything else. If you try to be of service to someone else and it ends up not going great for that other person, It doesn't mean that you were not of service. It was your intention. You were trying to be of service to others. And I think that's the key. What I really like here is the idea that it's your vibratory level. Like graduation, it's a school term, but it doesn't mean there's like some pencil paper test or somebody's going to ask you a bunch of questions. You have to answer the questions correctly. It just means it's whatever level your energy body is vibrating at. They've compared it to like pouring liquids of different densities into a tall, skinny glass. The liquids of different densities are just going to naturally sort themselves out, and that's going to be the way it is too. You're just going to naturally go to whatever level is the most comfortable that matches your vibration. But again, that's the key for a third density, to be aware of that and to consciously do your best to be of service to others. And as we said in the beginning, a lot of it really just comes down to being yourself, just on a day-to-day basis. Make a conscious effort to be who you are on the deepest level. That's a lifetime of stuff right there. Any other thoughts on this before we change topics?
It just thank you again for the analogy, like the liquids. Because when I read the material, I was like, kind of, that sounds complex. But then at the end, you know, you are going to be your own filter. No one else is going to filter you. No one else. Of course, might be someone there like looking. But there is this analogy, the Soul movie from Disney. That's
Mm.
such a beautiful movie because it's again like it's your evolution. If you are not prepared for the next step, you cannot go through it because you haven't learned that or you haven't experienced that. So
Which movie is that again?
Soul is
Soul?
from Disney.
Yes. Beautiful movie. Great
Yes.
movie. Yes. And really very law of one for sure.
Mm.
Anybody else have anything they wanted to share before we move on? Did want to note for our viewers that we did in fact do a podcast episode on graduation harvest. It was episode 5. We considered it one of the most important things to do early. So if you want to learn more about this and read some more passages and discussion on it, check it out. Otherwise, let's look at a couple passages on saving the world. On July 31st, 2007, Quo said, "If you are able to live the principles of love, compassion, and understanding in your life, you have significantly changed the vibration of your entire planet, of which you are an integral and holographic part. If you wish to save the world, work on yourself. That is our main suggestion to you at this time. We assure you that while it is simple for us to suggest this to you, it shall take your entire lifetime to live out the spiritual gifts, graces, and fruits with which you have been blessed, and which you shall continue to be blessed. We do not give you a simple task, but we give you a task well worth a lifetime of service." And on January 24th, 2009, Quo said, "We do not suggest a grand program of changing the world in order to achieve a more loving earth world. Rather, we suggest that you confine your work to your own consciousness. That is your true arena of adventure and challenge." Really super beautiful passage, because I have to confess I was one of those people who's always felt like I need to change the world. I need to save the world. I'm looking at what's happening in the world around me, and clearly I need to do something. And I think it's both liberating and empowering to realize that no, you really don't need to do anything to change the world, just by, again, being yourself and opening your heart as much as you can. And anyone is really the best way to change the world and does make a difference. I just find that super inspirational. What do you think, Elaine? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, just, I used to be very, I was an activist, and I still am an activist in some ways, um, protesting and writing, uh, leading, um, large groups at the city council meetings and all that. And because I just felt there was so much injustice and I had to be out there, doing doing what I could. And uh, I've since really changed that. I I really know because of the law of one that you can only create peace by being peaceful. You can only calm the fear with love, and all of that comes from inside of us. We can't make peace if we don't have peace inside. We can't share love and light if we don't have an awareness of that for ourselves and inside of ourselves, and can share it with those immediately around us. And it's again, it like levels the playing field. Anybody can do this. Anyone can help save the world by just having that love in your heart and that peace in your heart, and
What a
creating
beautiful way
that
to say
peace
it.
and, yeah, love with those nearest you. That's how you change the world, you know.
For sure. Yeah, and I did want to note, I don't think Quo is necessarily discouraging anyone from being an activist or for speaking out when they see things that seem not good, not
Hmm.
consonant with service to others' path. But again, they said it depends on the person. I mean,
Yeah,
some people feel called to do that, other people feel
yeah,
called not to do that. And those are
yeah,
both valid. Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
What do you think?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, no, I'm just agreeing with you.
Nice. What do you think, Lewis? Any thoughts? Anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's again, it starts with being your authentic self. Um, because I think what this passage says to me is like if you look at deeds, then you'll miss the start point. You'll bypass the experience. The experience leads you to knowledge of self, and once you have knowledge of self, then you open your heart or you open yourself a little bit more. And while you're open, then these different experiences, you'll do the thing you're supposed to do. Like you'll if it's a protest, you'll be like, okay, I have the mindset, I have the will and desire. Let me go protest to the best of my ability. If it's like helping your neighbor, if it's like grooming a forest, like whatever, but you have to first be open to it, and then you'll be better prepared for the service that you could be called to do, that you could be stirred
Mm,
to do. So
Well
yeah,
said.
that's what I.
beautiful.
Well said, and it reminds
Mm,
me of the cleaning the bathroom passage. It's like whatever
mm,
you do, do it with love in your heart, whether it's protesting or going to city hall meetings or whatever. But if you
mhm.
do it with love, especially instead of anger or fear or hatred towards the people you're protesting, I agree. Todd, what do you think? Anything to add?
It's just like you mark it, and this sentence is like the winner to me. If you wish to save the world, work on yourself. So I think a lot of
Mm,
people walk through their days nowadays carrying this saber complex, while in reality they are drawing themselves, and that's such a contradiction, Like then it comes to the surprise when you reach your limit and finally comes to face with yourself. It's both
mm,
surprising and beautiful because only then you actually start to truly see your own process and realize how deeply you were caught in someone else's story. Maybe because you thought it will be easier to than facing your own. And yeah, I think it's just like, so why not to save your own ship first and then sail with others in it? Like,
mm,
why not? And yeah, it's just like choose yourself, and choose yourself in a way that you respect yourself and you accept yourself, and then you can be the creator.
Well said. Yeah, and that reminds me of what I think Lewis was saying a while ago about doing the inner work. I think it is really helpful to know that,
Mhm.
yeah, anyone who does that inner work of healing from trauma that they have experienced, anyone who is able to get to a point where they can actually forgive someone who abused them or was very hurtful to them, that's huge both for themselves and for the whole planet. I think that's
mm.
probably one of the best things one can do to heal the planet is to do that kind of inner work. And again, I just find that super encouraging.
Mhm.
Did have another passage to look at. Does anybody have anything they wanted to say before we look at another passage? Cool.
Fine.
This is from February 11th, 2007. And Quo said, when entities do awaken and do realize that it is an urgent matter for them to shift their consciousness, they can feel that it is needed for others also to shift their consciousness. There comes into a play a tendency towards what we might call spiritual materialism, in which you want everyone to form up and live in a new way. In this regard, we would suggest that the skillful choice is always to work on the self without regard for working with other entities. Service to others, working upon what you perceive needs to be done in the world, begins and ends within yourself. Until the point at which you are asked specific questions that you may answer in what you hope is a spiritually helpful manner, the work you do on yourself is sufficient and more than adequate in terms of how you may affect the consciousness of planet Earth. Change yourself and you change the world. That is how powerful you really are. Beautiful words, again, coming from someone who really didn't know what words were coming out of their mouth as they were saying them. And I really appreciate that. I think there's a tendency for a lot of folks when they first discover the law of one to share it with the rest of the world and say, this is something that everyone needs to know. It is certainly something I have thought about many times and still think about many times. But I think I appreciate what they're saying here about how it begins and ends with yourself. I find that super helpful. What do you think, Elaine? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Just, I think of my daughter when I read this passage because, I so want her and those I love to, you know, learn about the law of one. And but what I've learned is that when you do the work on yourself and you become that love and light, you pretty much automatically become a lighthouse for those around you without knowing it, and the power of that is affecting yourself and those around you more than we realize, I think.
For
So
sure.
we really don't need to uh you know um save them, extend it to them. It's just, yeah. If you um, work on yourself and become that love and light,
For sure.
it's gonna permeate your environment and those around you.
I think that's the
Yeah,
best way to look at it. Model it
yeah,
until someone wants to ask you, wow,
right.
how did you get
Yes,
to this place? Yeah, for sure.
yes. Try not to give advice unless I'm asked.
Mm.
Yeah, for
Very
sure.
hard to
Trying to
do,
push this on someone before they're really ready for it, before they asked you for it. I have
especially
found
for your
already from
kid.
experience, yeah, not very helpful. Doesn't go well. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lewis? Anything to add?
Yeah, my apologies. I'm not sure if you guys are able to see my picture, but again, technical difficulties. Sorry about that. Yeah, as far as this passage, I think it's the challenge that we all face because even when you change a little bit, the people around you, well, at least in my life, people around me, they notice certain changes, like you don't
Mm.
drink or you don't smoke or you don't do this, and they want to know why. And because you love them, you want to share. And then
Mm,
sometimes you share something they're not ready to hear, and then it
Mm.
becomes like you think you're better than us. So it's like that meditation part, that time to self, that trying to figure out the best way to do any, I mean, to perform any other service is extremely important because it could turn out the opposite of what you want it to turn out when you don't think about it, when you don't give attention to the words that you might be sharing with people. That's what
Mm.
comes to mind when I see this passage.
Beautifully said. Much appreciated. Did want to note for our viewers that Quo or Ra have never said that you should not drink or should not smoke or anything. I have been partaking in both of those things liberally and seems to have worked out okay for me. But as they have said, every soul is unique, every spiritual journey is unique, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for anyone or everyone else, and vice versa. What works for others doesn't necessarily work for you. So I just felt obligated to throw that in there. Todd, anything to add?
I think you all guys frame it in best ways possible. So I'm totally fine with it. And yeah, I agree with you guys.
Good. Thank you. Well, let us go ahead and take a look at one more passage, a couple more passages on how service to others is service to self. On May 18th, 1997, Quo said, "How can one truly be of service? The paradox is that when one is of service to others, one is automatically serving the self, for that which is offered is returned 100-fold. It seems clear that each other person is also the self, is also the creator, and so serving others is serving self. Further, before one can be free to serve another, one must come into relationship with the self, and the process of arriving at a love and acceptance of the self may seem very selfish and egotistical. The hallmark of spiritual issues is paradox. The answers trail off into mystery without exception." Beautiful thoughts. Any thoughts, reflections on this, Todd?
Well, this one actually connects with the previous one a lot, because really we were talking, why not to choose yourself? And of course, when I say choose yourself, I mean embracing and respecting yourself. And if you do that within those parameters, I don't think much can go too wrong. And then if you add compassion and patience to that cocktail, there you have it, like it might sound strange to say I choose myself first, but that's how I decide to walk my own hero journey, like the one I choose before arriving to my mom's belly and daddy's arms, because it's your experience and live it by you for you, and then it reflects in others.
Mm.
Yeah, reminds me of a passage where they said doing that inner work of healing and understanding yourself better can seem to other people like service to self, but they said that is service to others of the highest order, at least in time space, if not in space time.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Louis? Any thoughts to add?
I it resonates with me because whenever I am giving my attention to another self and I'm trying to share love, and I sense or feel or experience their receipt of the love. I can feel like this energy exchange happening. Like, and when I see their countenance or their face or their whatever changing, it makes me feel something. And I'm like, that's always puzzled me. I'm like, how is this happening? How is their feeling something or feeling better make me feel better? And so now, and it when you read the Law of One and other stuff, I guess it talks about how we're all one. So anything you do for anyone, you're doing for yourself. Anything you do for yourself, you're doing for everyone else. So yeah.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in biology, there is something called mirror neurons. They're nerve cells in your brain that activate, like when you're watching a movie and you see something happen really painful to another person on the movie, you feel it yourself as if you were experiencing it yourself. Because apparently that is part of our wiring. We are wired to experience others as other selves, just as they're saying here, which is a beautiful way to think that we are wired for empathy, generally speaking. Elaine, any thoughts?
Yeah. Yes, serving others is serving yourself because, as Lewis said, we are all one. Forgiving others is forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself is forgiving others. So if you choose the service of others path, you've made that choice consciously and first. You know, that's your intention to serve others. And if it winds up serving yourself, that's serving the one, that's serving the creator, because we are all one. And when you choose that service to others, um, which is love, unconditional love, empathy, compassion, um, it's I it's good. It's good to serve yourself and others at the same time with those positive service to other
It
actions or
is a beautiful
thoughts.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that when you help someone else, it does make you feel better.
Hmm.
And not
Yeah.
just because you're being of service to others and it can help you graduate. They said if that's your reason for doing it, it actually kind of depolarizes you. So
Right.
you have
Yeah.
to be of service to others without necessarily doing it just to graduate. Yeah, that's a
Hmm.
tricky part.
Yeah.
I think we have one more passage to look at. Did anybody have anything else to share on this one before we look at one more? Let's take a look. This was from September 18th, 1988, and this has been edited for brevity. Quo said, "We feel that the true selfishness is to choose the path of service to others, and we are not playing with words here. We have found it to be the quicker path, the easier path, and by far the more joyful path. We find the increasing lack of competition to be most satisfying, and the ability ultimately to merge together as one creative, collaborative being infinitely gratifying. Therefore, we ask that each self free the self from self accusations of selfishness. We ask each who feels that another is selfish to forgive and cease from judging. For who knows where the selfishness may lie and who must be forgiven and final accounting." Beautiful passage with a lot to unpack there, I think. Lewis, any first thoughts, reflections on it?
No, no,
Hmm.
interesting. I guess I'm still digesting it now.
Yeah, indeed. Appreciate
Thanks.
that. And we can come back to you if you want. Todd, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
I just thinking now in the Jesus one we hear a lot about in history because a lot of people want to be like Jesus, but why you want to be like Jesus? Jesus chose to be Jesus. Jesus doesn't choose to be, I don't know, another one. So why choose yourself, really? Why you want to emulate someone's lives? Then you are doing really nothing. You are just trying to find a placebo to find your experience more less maybe less unpredictable. So yeah. It of
I
course
saw
it
what they
might
did to
come.
Jesus. I'm not envious of that in particular.
Yeah, I think the word selfishness here is kind of I'm not agree with the word selfishness here. Because in this at least in these sentences is very my opinion positive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just funny how they're saying that the service to others path is indeed a more selfish choice to make than service to self because it's easier and it's shorter and it's quicker and it's more loving and all that kind of stuff, which can't argue with. What do you
Mhm.
think, Elaine? Any thoughts on anything?
Yes. The word selfishness or selfish has a connotation in our society, our or my upbringing anyway, you're so selfish, or you're self-centered, or it just has a negative connotation. And yet the law of one is all about the self. Know the self, love the self. That's also knowing the other self. So, yeah, selfishness is not a bad word. It's the connotation that we have given it, you know. So, yeah, it's just another uh, use of words. Words are so difficult sometimes, and so yeah.
It's
but
paradoxical
but this
for sure.
it is, and it's this is a very hopeful, loving passage,
Indeed.
yeah.
Yeah, and I like that part in the second paragraph in blue where they say, "We ask each who feels that another is selfish to forgive and cease from judging. And again, I
Yeah.
grapple with that every day, but I guess just have to remind her that I probably would have done the same thing if I was in their place. And I know that because they are literally me in another body. So I already know that I would have done the same thing if I were them because I am them. And that's a nice
Yeah.
perspective, I suppose.
Yes.
Beautiful conversation. Did anybody have any thoughts on this passage before we wrap things up?
Yeah, real quick, if I could, if no one else has anything to, I guess something that I'm getting that there might have been an earlier conversation or question about selfishness, and there might have been the pointing out of maybe service to self individuals or entities and the selfish behaviors and stuff. And then the response was, well, we feel that true selfishness is service to others, you know? And so they're trying to say, hey, get away from the judgment. Like, don't go down that path. Just be open and loving and continue to work on yourself. Don't try to quantify or qualify this versus that, and so on. I think that's something I'm getting from this whole this message right here. Yeah.
Me too, for sure. And there's a big difference between self-care and being selfish. If you are taking care of yourself and tending yourself and doing the inner work so that you can be of more service to others and help others, that's one thing. If you're being selfish at the expense of others, knowing that what you're doing is hurting others and you don't care about that, then that's kind of a different story, I think. But again, like Elaine was saying, these words can be bent and twisted and looked at in different ways. So that's part of the challenge, I think. Oh, anybody have any other thoughts before we wrap things up? Nice. So where do we go from here? What are some good takeaway lessons we might take away from our time today? A few thoughts to consider, if you will. One, if you can remember that the key to service to others is seeing the creator in yourself and in all others, seeing yourself in all others. If you can remember that the best way to be of service to others is to be yourself on the deepest level and to keep exploring who you are on the deepest level. And that anytime you can have your heart open, you are being of maximum service to others at any time. And the more you can do it, the better. Receiving, blessing, sending forth the Creator's love light as it passes through your energy body, sending out to the rest of the world and creation is a great way to be of service to others. And that the best way to save the world is to work on yourself. And that in many ways, being of service to others is being of service to self. It's just one of many paradoxes in third density to explore and try to understand better. What do you think? Todd, any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add, or any final thoughts, reflections on this?
I really like the way you summarize things. Like, really. You might also integrate the pop quiz here, and then might be easier for me. But no, it's like I don't want to add more because really, I think we have talked a lot, and everyone can just have by their own like the discernment to choose why they resonates more and why they want to take maybe to them, or maybe they want to share it with someone else. Good resume. Thank you so much.
Well said. Thank you for helping.
Mm-hmm.
Elaine,
Mm-hmm.
any
Just
takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add, or final thoughts?
yeah, just gratitude for this time that we've spent together and the way you've facilitated the discussion with these beautiful passages that just shine so much love and light on the topic. So just gratitude. I have no wisdom to add here.
Thank you. Well, I'm grateful to have everyone here on the panel. Like I said, I always learn new things. Panelists always think of things that I hadn't thought of, see things in ways that I hadn't seen before. So I really, really have enjoyed the conversation, and I'm really thankful for all of you for being here. Louis, did you have any takeaway lessons or final thoughts you wanted to share before we wrap things up?
No, I'm just thankful for being able to participate. Thanks for the invite, and thanks to Elaine and Todd for also being here. It's been awesome.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are the best panel that we had yet. And I know I say that to every panel, but this time I really
You
mean it. You
do.
guys were awesome. You're the best. Yeah. Did want to note for our viewers that we did a episode on service to others versus service to self. It was episode 3 because we thought it was that important. So if you want to look at some more passages on this and more exploration of the topic, feel free to check it out. And by the time this episode uploads, we will have uploaded the service to self episode as well, right before this one. And you can check that one out on our YouTube channel. Otherwise, it is time for your pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something that we like to
Yay.
do to end our time together on a fun note and maybe look for law of one connections in pop culture. Since today's episode was about service to others, it seems only fitting that we should have a pop quiz on a third density entity who, aside from Jesus, is perhaps most often thought of as a model for the service to others path. Someone who both the Reverend Martin Luther King and the Dalai Lama cited as an inspiration and mentor for them. Someone who was dedicated his life to helping the people of India gain independence from the British Empire without using violence. I am, of course, referring to who, panelists?
Gandhi.
Gandhi. Yes. Single name celebrity decades before Beyonce came on the scene. His first name was Mohandas. He is often referred to as Mahatma Gandhi, Mahatma just being an honorific term meaning great soul. He has actually been mentioned a couple of times in channeling sessions, most notably on October 3rd, 2004. Quo said, "We would bring your attention to the one known as Mahatma Gandhi. We have spoken before of this entity. This was an entity who was very clever in ways which are, for the most part, reserved for those of service to self in their philosophy. Yet this entity's vision was powerful in its unity, and it refused to allow any thinking which closed the heart against any, even those which this entity perceived with some justification as suborning and limiting the rights of his own people. And all of Gandhi's dealings with the government of those who were British and who held the reins of rulership of his nation at that time, this entity refrained from at any time closing the heart against or lifting a weapon towards those entities which would be considered the enemy, that is, the British. In many, many ways, this entity made life very difficult for those of the British rulership of his nation. Yet never was this entity less than cordial and civil. He would not have succeeded, nor could his ideas have taken hold, were he not coming from a place of genuine love. If he had hated his enemy, no matter had he done exactly the same things in his political posturing, he would not have succeeded. His integrity and purity of motive were such that those of India and those of Britain alike were able to see it, feel it, and in the end, respect it and respond to it. His work to aid his people, therefore, never took on the shades of violence or terrorism, but retained the goodly hue of faith, love, and hope." Beautiful words. I love how they said he was kind of clever in ways that you usually only see in service to self entities and yet used at service to others. There was another channeling session where they did refer to him as a sixth density wanderer, which kind of makes sense. So panelists, I am going to ask you 3 questions about this entity, 2 true or false, 1 multiple choice. See how many you can get correct. You can just say your viewers out loud, say your answers out loud, and viewers watching this on video, you can say your answers out loud too. We can hear you through time space. Are you ready for your first question?
Mm-hmm.
Your first question is true or false? True or false? Gandhi was an impressive public speaker from an early age. What do you think?
False.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I don't think
Wow,
that's
you say
true.
that with so much confidence. Do you know this or are you just like guessing? That's pretty good. It is indeed false. He was a very, very meek and shy person by nature. And apparently there was a debate that he had at the London Vegetarian Society where he got so much stage fright that somebody else had to read his arguments out loud. And the first time he tried to cross-examine a witness as a lawyer, he got so nervous that he just flopped back into his chair and gave up the case, returning his fee to the presumably disgruntled client of his. But apparently he got better. Well, let's see how you do on your second one. How about this? This is also a true or false question. True or false? Gandhi exchanged letters with Adolf Hitler,
Mm.
who was the subject of our
Oh,
service to self pop quiz, by the way. What do you think?
wow. Uh, I have no idea,
Is
but
there a
it'd
maybe?
be
Maybe
amazing.
true?
It'd be amazing if it were true.
As you know, in our pop quizzes, anything goes. Every question is a trick question. What do you think, Lewis?
I'm gonna say false.
Nice. It is indeed false, but not exactly false. Gandhi was around at the same time as Hitler, and he did actually write two letters to Hitler, one in 1939 before the start of World War II, and one in 1940 after the war had started.
Mm.
And yes, this is the letter that he wrote to Hitler in 1939. The British colonial government would not allow him to send the two letters. So he did write two letters, they just weren't sent. But in this one, he said, "Dear friend, friends have been urging me to write to you for the sake of humanity, but I have resisted their request because of the feeling that any letter from me would be an impertinence. Something tells me that I must not calculate and that I must make my appeal for whatever it may be worth. It is quite clear that you are today the one person in the world who can prevent a war which may reduce humanity to a savage state. Must you pay that price for an object, however worthy it may appear to you to be? Will you listen to the appeal of one who has deliberately shunned the method of war, not without considerable success? Anyway, I anticipate your forgiveness if I have erred in writing to you."
Wow, so
Super
Wow.
beautiful.
nice letter. Yeah.
That's incredible. Gosh.
And the world can only wonder what Hitler would have written back if he had received this letter.
That's
Fascinating.
amazing. Like like he's even saying like, forgive me if forgive me, and you
Hmm.
are the one who can avoid this. He's giving them the reckon and again also the forgiveness at once. Like this is masterpiece.
It is.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, which of course begs the question of, well, how would we do this now, for example? How would we deal with say, Adolf Hitler today, knowing what we know about the law of one? Would writing a letter to him help? Probably not. I'm guessing somebody who has chosen the service to self path, if they have consciously done so, really doesn't care how many people they are hurting or killing. That is kind of part of the deal. But I suppose we are
You
still,
never know.
you never know, and we are still supposed to respond, to treat them with love and unconditional love, as Gandhi did, as Jesus did, because either you believe in the law of one or you don't. Either you believe
Yeah.
that person is also you in another body or a creator in another body, or you don't. So that's the challenge that I think all of us are going to be dealing with in our own way in the not that distant future. All right, ready for your last
Mm.
question? Last question is multiple choice. What year or years did Gandhi win the Nobel Peace Prize? Was it A, 1937, B, 1938, C, 1947, or D,
Ouch.
1948?
I have no clue.
For
See?
return, what about 47 maybe? 48? The last one?
It's a good guess. What do you think, Lewis?
How many answers can we give?
The way pop quizzes go, anything's fair game. Could be all of the above, could be none of the above, could be any combination of the above. It's anybody's guess. What do you think?
Go with A, B, and C, just for fun.
Nice.
If I have no idea.
Fun is the main point here. Yes, indeed. Sadly, the correct answer is none of the above. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1937, 1938, 1939, 1947, and 1948, but he did not win in any of those years. And there was no Nobel Prize from 1939 to 1943 due to World War II. And I believe
Mm.
he was nominated for the Nobel Prize in 1948, just a few days before he was assassinated. So they decided
Mm.
not to give the prize to him posthumously. And I think they decided not to give the Nobel Prize in 1940 to any living person or any person there at all. So
Mhm.
ironic that someone who was such an advocate for world peace never won the Nobel Prize.
Mm.
But
Mm.
that is one of
Mm.
many unjust things we can put on our list.
Yeah.
Panelists, I did want to thank you again for being here. So much enjoyed the conversation. Thank you to you for everything you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. For you who are watching this video at some future time in the near or distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We're sending you our love light and we're receiving yours. Until next time, Adonai, namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Bye bye, everyone.
Hi, guys. Thank you.